Welcome back to AtroKraft, and welcome to episode 2 of Train-athon. Last episode ended a little differently than planned. After getting absolutely chewed apart on our first attempt, we restarted and took a much more deliberate approach. We kept the pollution cloud as small as possible, slow-fed science, unlocked red ammo, and focused on survival before scale. By the end of episode 1, we had finished our first version of the perimeter wall, secured the immediate area, and stabilized the factory. At this point, everything was still very lean. Single producers across the board, with just red and green science, red ammo, and walls coming online. It wasn't fast, and it wasn't pretty, but it was holding. In this episode, the goal is to start turning that fragile stability into something that we can actually grow. We'll be expanding science production up through military science, bringing green circuits online properly, and building out a small but critical supplies factory so we're not hand-feeding half the base anymore. Along the way, we're going to run headfirst into our first real constraint, iron. That's going to force an early expansion outside the current wall to secure a larger node before shortages start cascading. Once military science is running, we'll stack every damage upgrade we can get our hands on, add grenades and defender drones into the mix, and finally start shifting from a purely defensive posture to actively clearing the surrounding biter nests. By the end of the episode, we will have pushed our starter area to the limit. We will have expanded out to encompass another additional iron node, and we will be stocked up and ready to expand our base out to the full mid-game size. So with that, let's get back into it. We're still being cautious and deliberate, but we're no longer just trying to survive. Today we're starting by rebuilding the same smelting area we completed in the last episode before everything went to pot. Because of that, I'm not going to spend a lot of time rehashing the layout. The design is still centered around single yellow belts per smelted item, with the exception of iron plate, which gets 2 full arrays. This gives us enough throughput to support early science and basic production without pushing pollution or power too hard. Later on, this setup is intentionally easy to upgrade. Once we move to steel furnaces, each line can be converted directly to a single red belt without changing the overall layout. And with a bit of movie magic, the refinery block comes together, and once that's online, we can move straight into building the early game main feed bus for the entire base. From there, our top priority is getting a red ammo factory online and feeding perimeter turrets along the inside edge of the wall. Once again, we're designing around a single yellow belt of ammunition. That's going to be more than sufficient at this stage. If we ever reach a point where we're consuming ammo faster than a yellow belt can supply it, then we're being attacked at a rate that's already unsustainable for repairs and logistics. At that point, production isn't the problem, positioning and area control are. Because of this, the plan here is to stay proactive. We'll clear biter nests inside the polluted cloud as they appear, rather than letting pressure build until the defenses are overwhelmed. This buys us time to grow deliberately instead of reacting to constant emergencies. As we move toward the mid-game, the perimeter will expand and our defensive strategy will shift. Gun turrets won't be the only line of defense anymore. Laser and flamethrower turrets will start carrying more of the load, which significantly reduces the long-term ammo demand and makes this early setup more than adequate. For now though, we will just place the ammo feed belt around the perimeter along with a few sparse turrets, inserters to feed them, and power poles to run the inserters. This is a good bare minimum to protect the walls from attack, but we will be very quickly expanding this as attacks outpace our defense. Next up, we need to get a permanent red and green science factory online. For these, I'm using a couple of blueprint strings downloaded from factorioprints.com. I believe Xylan is the author of this one, so big ups to him and everyone else who puts in the time to creating and sharing prints like these. Sites like this are a great resource, especially once you've already understood how these builds work. Their best use, though, in my opinion, is speeding up the more tedious, repetitive parts of the game after you've already learned how to assemble them yourself. I would strongly advise against using downloaded blueprints to build your entire base before you've gone through the learning process. It tends to feel hollow, a little cheaty, and it can actually make your game less satisfying in the long run. Your playthroughs will likely die early when skipping straight to optimized designs without really engaging with the problem solving along the way. Used thoughtfully though, these prints save time without taking away the fun, and that's exactly what we're doing here. Now with some permanent science online, it's time to pause expansion and deal with the nearby biter nests before they become a larger problem. At this point though, our only real military resource is red ammo, so we're going to rely on turret creep. The idea is to place wall-protected gun turrets, feed them manually, and let them draw aggro while I move in to take out spawners and inch the turrets forward. This works, but only to a point. Smaller nests can be cleared out this way without too much trouble, but there's a very real upper limit on how effective this strategy is. Once the nests get large enough, the incoming damage simply overwhelms the turrets. Acid spitters are the biggest problem here. Their burst damage is extremely punishing, and they can delete turrets faster than you can reasonably replace or repair them. That makes this approach unreliable and reinforces the need to get better tools online as quickly as possible. Once we take all the punishment we can stand, we can finally shift back into expansion. The next critical upgrade is getting green circuits online. Early game green circuit factories tend to converge on very similar layouts, and for good reason. The key ratio to remember is 3 to 2, 3 copper wire assemblers feeding 2 green circuit assemblers. From there, you can just repeat the pattern as many times as you need to hit your target throughput. We're going a bit larger than strictly necessary here, aiming for 2 full yellow belts of green circuits. That's more than we need right now, but green circuits are almost always the first real bottleneck in early factories. Giving ourselves extra capacity early costs very little and saves a lot of frustration later. This gives us breathing room for science, military production, and the next round of expansion without having to immediately revisit one of the most crucial parts of the base. From there, the episode becomes a bit more fragmented as we juggle several priorities at once. We expand the research area, add more turrets, reinforce the perimeter wall with another layer, and lay down additional stone brick paths to increase movement speed, something I should have mentioned we've been doing constantly in the background the entire time. We also spend more time clearing nearby biter nests, with mixed results. At this stage, everything is about managing pressure and making incremental improvements with whatever resources we have available. At this point, I haven't broken down yet and started on a proper supplies factory, so there's more handcrafting going on than I would really like, but that time will be quickly coming to an end. Before we can do that though, there's one critical milestone I need to hit first: military science. Given the settings we're playing on, military science is absolutely essential. Every damage upgrade, firing speed bonus, and survivability increase directly reduces the ongoing cost of dealing with biters. It's not glamorous progress, but it's foundational to our survival. We're getting closer now to equilibrium with the biter problem, where we're no longer constantly reacting, but we're not quite there yet. Once military science is online, we can shift and spend some time putting together a preliminary supplies factory. I decide to design this one on the fly, a decision I will come to regret fairly quickly. This is one of those cases where I'd honestly recommend either grabbing a solid pre-made supplies factory online or fully committing to spaghetti and accepting it for what it is. In a Deathworld playthrough, you don't really have the luxury of endless design time, especially when pressure is constant. If I were intentionally designing something from scratch, I'd probably fire up the editor extensions mod and build it out in a test environment first, but that's hindsight talking. At this point in the episode, we're still operating in survival mode, and this supplies factory is very much a good enough for now kind of solution. We'll revisit it later and replace it with something cleaner, but for now, it gets us moving, and that's sometimes all you need. I would normally stop the episode here since we've already accomplished quite a lot, but we found ourselves in the middle of a developing crisis. Our original iron node is starting to run dry, and demand on it is only increasing. At the same time, biter pressure is getting worse as evolution continues to outpace our current defenses. The situation is easy to understand, as is the solution. Our rapidly depleting node is inside our walls, and the next closest node isn't. At first, it felt like the only solution was to expand the entire perimeter prematurely, which simply wasn't feasible with the resources we had at the time. But after thinking it through, a better option became clear. Instead of expanding the whole wall, we push out a narrow corridor towards the iron node and give that corridor its own perimeter. This turns out to work extremely well. The corridor is so tight that every part of it stays within turret range, and by packing turrets as closely together as possible, anything that attacks is immediately deleted. With only a few nests to clear along the way, we're able to secure the node without overextending ourselves. The result is a massive new iron supply, over 50 million units, more than enough to carry us well into the next stages of the game. And with that, I'm going to call it for today. We started this episode with a fragile shell of a base and turned it into something with real momentum, a factory that actually has a chance of surviving on this hostile planet. Next time, we'll expand the perimeter properly, secure additional resources, and finally break into red science, oil, and then blue and purple science. So thanks for coming in, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and comment, and most importantly, hit that subscribe button. It really does help. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.